Yeah, M28M Launch of Progress.
Good day from the International Space Station Flight Control Room at the Johnson Space Center in Houston. Day from the International Space Station Flight Control Room at the Johnson Space Center in Houston. You are looking live at Yuri Gagarin's launch pad in the Central Asian Desert, where a Soyuz U-class booster rocket is poised for launch 25 minutes from now to deliver more than 3 tons of food, fuel, and supplies for the Expedition 44 crew aboard the International Space Station. Housed inside, encapsulated in the upper stage of the 3-stage Soyuz booster, is the unpiloted Progress-60 cargo craft, which has been prepared for launch over the past several weeks, and which is carrying 1,940 pounds of propellant, 106 pounds of oxygen, 926 pounds of water, and 3,133 pounds of other logistical supplies and experiment hardware, filled to the gills, ready for a 2-day journey to dock to the Pirs docking compartment of the International Space Station's Russian segment in the wee hours Sunday morning. The Soyuz booster is fully fueled. All systems are go on the flight control teams here in Houston and at the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov outside of Moscow have been polled, and everything is go for launch just 24 minutes, 13 seconds from now. Here in the International Space Station Flight Control Room, a shift handover has just been completed. The Orbit 1 team now on console, led by Flight Director Brian Smith. He'll be presiding over the first half of the crew's workday with his team here in Mission Control. The crew on board the International Space Station actually asleep at this hour. They are scheduled to be awakened about an hour and a half from now to begin their workday. Half a world away at the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov, the Russian flight control team, which is in charge of this launch and all of Progress operations en route to the International Space Station, they are on console monitoring their data. The launch, of course, controlled out of the blockhouse at the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan until the Progress spacecraft separates from the 3rd stage of the Soyuz booster 8 minutes 46 seconds after launch. At that point, the control of the rest of the flight of the Progress to the station is taken over by the flight control team in Korolyov itself. This launch coming on July 3rd is actually a 2-day rendezvous instead of what we recently have become accustomed to, a 4-orbit, 6-hour fast-track rendezvous of Soyuz and Progress vehicles to the International Space Station. This particular launch date was chosen to match a launch date 3 weeks from now for the next crew that is headed to the International Space Station. The orbital mechanics just worked out to create a 2-day rendezvous that will result in the Progress automatically docking to the Pirs docking compartment of the International Space Station at 2:13 a.m. Central Time on Sunday morning. This launch coming a little more than 2 months in the wake of the 59 Progress launch anomaly that occurred on April 28th, an anomaly that resulted in the failure of that cargo craft to reach the International Space Station. The Russian Federal Space Agency has conducted an exhaustive investigation into that failure and came up with the most probable cause being damage sustained by the Progress as a result of an off-nominal 3rd stage separation due to a design feature and related to a frequency and dynamic characteristic that occurred at the time of 3rd stage separation. This Soyuz booster that's on the pad ready to send Progress-60 into orbit is a different class of Soyuz booster than the one in which the failure occurred back on April 28th, that being a Soyuz 21A booster on April 28th, that being a Soyuz 21A booster rocket, and the design feature that did not work back on April 28th is being modified for future such Soyuz booster launches. This launch also coming less than 5 days after the loss of the SpaceX Dragon cargo craft during its launch anomaly following liftoff from the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. So Many eyes are turned to the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan today, with fingers crossed for a successful launch of the Progress-60 to deliver its cache of supplies to the Expedition 44 crew. Amongst that crew is NASA flight engineer Scott Kelly, in the midst of a year-long mission aboard the International Space Station. Earlier today, during an interview on NASA television, Kelly was asked about the crew's level of anticipation for this morning's launch.
Well, third time's a charm, I hope, and we're hoping that we get this one. Obviously, like I said, it's as these next two, if they get delayed or even move out beyond September, October, it will cause problems. But we're as confident as we can be in any rocket launch. I mean, there's always risks, there's always chances of failure, but you have to look at the positive, and we expect it's going to arrive on time, but certainly we're...
Again, that interview on NASA television earlier on Thursday, Scott Kelly talked about the crew's level of anticipation for the arrival of the load of supplies on board the Progress-60 cargo craft. This Progress resupply vehicle, as mentioned a moment ago, has been prepared extensively over the past several weeks. As you see in the series of photos, courtesy of RSC Energia, which is in charge of the spacecraft itself, the Progress was encapsulated into the upper stage of the Soyuz booster, which then underwent testing in the integration facility in the integration building 254 at the Baikonur facility, in the integration building 254 at the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. Mated, the three stages were mated, and then the Progress rolled out to its launch pad in the wee hours of Tuesday morning, Houston time, which was the morning, Tuesday morning in Baikonur, where it was vertically erected and the gantry arms swung shut around the Progress to allow technicians in Baikonur to begin hooking up power and electrical lines, data lines, so that the final hours of preparation could be conducted in advancing the Progress toward its launch, which is just 18 and a half minutes. The Progress toward its launch, which is just 18 and a half minutes from now. Orbiting 249 statute miles above the South Atlantic, moving from southwest to northeast in an orbit inclined 51.6 degrees to either side of the equator. At the time of launch, coming up just 18 minutes from now, the station will be passing over northwestern Sudan, near the border with Egypt and Libya, as the chase will begin for the Progress to reach the International Space Station on Sunday morning. On board the station, as we mentioned, the crew is asleep at this hour. This broadcast is actually being uplinked to them in the event that they happen to wake up. We have not heard from the crew yet today. They are not scheduled to be awakened for about another hour and a half. On board the International Space Station, Scott Kelly, as we mentioned, the NASA flight engineer, along with the station commander, Gennady Padalka, now the all-time leading human in terms of aggregate days in space. He surpassed the old mark of 803 days in space by Sergei Krikalev this past Sunday, and they are joined by Mikhail Kornienko, the Roscosmos flight engineer, who, along with Kelly, spending a year in space collecting valuable biomedical data that will be used in the formation of a human spaceflight to Mars in the future. At the Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center in Star City, Russia, outside of Moscow, the next trio that will be launched to the International Space Station in just 3 weeks is completing its training. NASA flight engineer Kjell Lindgren on the left, Soyuz commander Oleg Kononenko in the middle, and Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency astronaut Kimiya Yui on the right. Again, completing their final training. They are scheduled to fly down to the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan on Friday for the final 2 weeks of training that will lead to their launch at 3:02 a.m. Baikonur time on July 23rd, which will be 4:02 p.m. Central Time on July 22nd. They will be on a 4-orbit, 6-hour transit to the International Space Station. Their launch coming about 2 months behind schedule because of the 59 Progress anomaly that occurred back on April 28th. The countdown continuing to proceed on track, just 16 minutes away from the launch of the Soyuz booster that will take the Progress-60 to orbit. The three stages of the Soyuz will propel the Progress. The first stage will shut down just under 2 minutes after liftoff. The second stage, engines will fire. It shuts down, and then it's all up to the third stage for the rest of the 8-minute, 46-second trip to the preliminary orbit for the Progress vehicle. Third stage separation will occur at 8 minutes and 49 seconds after launch. The launch time tonight is 11:55 and 48 seconds p.m. Central Time, 12:55:48 a.m. Eastern Time, 10:55 and 48 seconds a.m. at the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan, where the temperature is hovering around the 90-degree Fahrenheit mark at this hour. Once the Progress separates from the third stage of the Soyuz booster, its solar arrays and navigational antennas and an external television camera boom will deploy, and the Progress will begin a pre-programmed automated sequence of engine firings that will increase its altitude and provide basically the pursuit towards reaching the International Space Station very late Saturday night, where it will arrive in the vicinity of the station, conduct a fly-around, align itself for its final approach for docking that is scheduled at 2:13 a.m. Central Time Sunday morning to the Pirs docking compartment on the Earth-facing side of the Russian segment of the International Space Station. The Soyuz was fully fueled several hours ago. As we mentioned a short time ago, the flight control team here in Houston polled the team of flight controllers on console to get a go for launch. The flight director here passed that on to the shift flight director over at the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov, and everything was said to be go for launch on both sides of the ocean and down in Baikonur itself. The gantry arms that you saw enclosed around the Soyuz in that series of photographs we showed just a few moments ago, those gantry arms spread and were retracted about 25 minutes ago as planned at the T-minus 40-minute mark. Everything is in readiness now for the final minutes of the countdown for launch just 13 minutes from now. A few milestones in the minutes ergocraft at the T-minus 7-minute mark. The preparations for launch will be transitioned to an automated launch sequencer in the Soyuz booster at the launch pad. Just a couple of minutes later, strip chart recorders in the Launch Control Center in Baikonur will be activated, in which telemetry from the launch vehicle will be recorded. The fuel lines and other elements of the rocket engines will be purged with nitrogen, and then a special key in the blockhouse at Baikonur will be turned to a drainage position. The valves through which evaporated gaseous oxygen will escape from the fuel tanks into the atmosphere, beginning to drain back oxygen into the tanks at the proper level for pressurization and launch. We are T-minus 11 minutes 42 seconds until launch. Again, we are T-minus 11 minutes 42 seconds until launch. Again, everything continuing to go normally with the countdown. All systems with the Soyuz booster and the Progress-60 cargo craft are go for launch just 11 and a half minutes from now. Hearing on the loops that the flight controllers in Korolyov and at the blockhouse in Baikonur are being polled for their readiness for launch one final time. Everything is in order. Again, the Progress loaded with more than 3 tons of food, fuel, and supplies. Currently at the International Space Station is another Progress supply craft, the Progress-M28 cargo craft. The 58 Progress cargo craft was launched in mid-February to the International Space Station. It currently resides. And the launch control team in Baikonur in the blockhouse reports everything is go for launch. T-minus 10 minutes and counting. This is the same launch pad at Site 1 that the Soyuz TMA-17M spacecraft will be poised within a few weeks to carry Chel Lindgren, Oleg Kononenko, and Kamiya Yui to the International Space Station in the next launch of the trio that will join Scott Kelly, Gennady Padalka, and Mikhail Kornienko on board the orbital outpost. April 12, 1961 saw Yuri Gagarin launching from this same site, Site 1, called Gagarin's Start, where he became the first human to fly in space. Today, an important cache of supplies ready for launch to the International Space Station. This is the 98th day in space for Kelly, Padalka, and Kornienko. And as mentioned, Kelly and Kornienko now in the 4th month of a year-long mission aboard the International Space Station. Coming up on the 7.5-minute mark until launch. The Soyuz booster fully fueled, ready to begin its journey. Crystal clear skies around the Baikonur Cosmodrome. Downrange, everything is green. All systems are go at the 7-minute mark. The Soyuz booster now transitioning to an automatic ground launch sequencer. ground launch sequencer now in control of the final minutes of this countdown. Launch just over 5 minutes from now. The range at Baikonur is just over 5 minutes from now. The range at Baikonur is clear. The Soyuz rocket ready to begin its clear. The Soyuz rocket ready to begin its trip to deliver the Progress-60 cargo craft into. And now strip chart recorders in the Launch Control Center have been activated to record telemetry from both the Soyuz booster and the Progress cargo ship itself. The fuel lines and other elements of the rocket's engines are now being purged with nitrogen to fireproof them, removing vapors of fuel and oxidizer from the vicinity of the first stage. 4.5 minutes until launch. Next milestone will come in about 1 minute and 15 seconds, where the booster tank will be pressurized for flight, optimizing the flow of fuel and helping to add structural support to the rocket as it sits on the launch table at Site 1 of the Baikonur Cosmodrome. All strip chart recorders have been activated. All systems are go for launch. 3 minutes, 15 seconds from now. The replenishment of replenishment of oxidizer tanks on the Soyuz booster.
Is there a reason for having such a large flame trench, I think it's called, in Russian launch pad and the Soyuz pad? Same as the reason for the water deluge system or American launch sites.
The booster pressurization is underway, everything looking good, coming up on the 2-minute mark until launch. Coming up on the 90-second mark. T-minus 1 minute. The Soyuz now on internal power. Automated sequence has begun. The first umbilical now being retracted. 25 seconds until launch.
Let's see, practice last time, Soyuz.
The launch command has been issued. Standing by for main engine start. Second umbilical retracted. We have main engine ignition. 3, 2, 1. Turbo pumps up to flight speed. Maximum thrust and liftoff. Liftoff of the 60th Progress resupply vehicle en route to the International Space Station. All structural parameters reported to be normal. Good roll, pitch, and yaw program initiated. Progress 60 heading to the northeast. Structural stability is reported to be normal from the blockhouse at Baikonur, coming up on the 1-minute mark into the flight. Combustion and chamber pressures are normal. Everything looking good so far. Good roll, pitch, and yaw program. One minute, 20 seconds into the flight, everything is normal. The Soyuz passing through the area of maximum dynamic pressure.
Двигатели первой, второй ступени работают нормально. Стоп.
1 minute, 50 seconds into the flight. All structural parameters are normal. Standing by for first stage separation.
Рысканье, вращение в норме. 120. Есть выключение двигателей боковых блоков. Есть отделение боковых блоков.
First stage separation has been confirmed. The Progress 60 atop the Soyuz booster, 30 miles in altitude, 73 miles downrange from the Baikonur Cosmodrome. 2.5 minutes into the flight, structural stability is reported to be normal. Second stage engines are up and running in good shape. According to the blockhouse at Baikonur, everything looking good so far, approaching the 3-minute mark into the flight. The launch shroud has been jettisoned, exposing the Progress resupply vehicle. All of the booster parameters are normal. Stability is all the parameters are normal. Parameters are normal.
Oh, they actually have velocity things. I didn't ever notice that.
The second stage performance, everything is reported to be normal.
Don't trust Russians, apparently.
second stage separation is confirmed, right on time. The lower skirt has been jettisoned from the third stage. The lower skirt has been jettisoned from the third stage engine up and running, 5 minutes 15 seconds into the flight. The Soyuz booster, 104 miles in altitude, 179 miles downrange from the Baikonur Cosmodrome. Third stage engine performance reported to be normal. Control systems are all normal. Third stage performance is nominal. Everything looking good so far, coming up on the 6-minute mark into the flight. Mark, 6 minutes into the flight. The Progress-60 continues to track right down the money, right down the center line. Yaw, roll, and pitch parameters are normal. About 2.5 minutes of powered flight remaining. Third stage engine continues to run normally. Structural parameters are normal. Seven minutes, 45 seconds into the flight. About 1 more minute of powered flight for the Soyuz booster's upper stage. Third stage engine performance continues to function as advertised as we stand by for third stage shutdown and spacecraft separation. We have third stage shutdown and separation, spacecraft separation confirmed. Navigational antennas have been deployed, standing by for solar array deploy. And we have confirmation of the deployment of the Progress-60's solar arrays and navigational antennas. The Progress-60 now in great shape in its preliminary orbit, Beginning its 2-day trip to the International Space Station, everything went by the book.
Okay, I'll end the video here. I'm Bot M25. Goodbye.